Hi, my name is Del Warren, Vice President of the Kegel Training Center, and I want to welcome you to this 10 video series on the Teen Masters. First, I want to introduce you to the coaches that are going to be helping you. To my right, this is Coach Randy Stoughton, the head teaching professional here at the Kegel Training Center, USBC Gold Level coach. And to my left, Coach Rick Wilsey, also a coach here at the Kegel Training Center, and soon to be USBC Gold Level coach. All right, so the first thing we want to talk a little bit about is your experience at this league and skill level event that you're going to be seeing, and also the Teen Masters. What makes this unique really is the two things I'm going to talk a little bit about now. First is the equipment, and it's a limited ball tournament. These balls are a lot different than what you would normally throw in normal league play or tournament play. The first ball on my right here is the 3.0. It's a urethane bowling ball. And what's interesting is about 30 years ago, urethane came out in 1981. This particular ball is a urethane bowling ball, and you're going to see a little more hook between this ball and my next ball, which is the 2.0, the polyester ball. The polyester ball is very similar to the house balls that you see when you go into bowling centers, and most of you think that you're not going to be able to hook this ball, but I can promise you on the lane condition that we're about to talk about, you will be. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the lane oil, or maybe the amount of lane oil on the Teen Masters condition versus what you're used to bowling on. The graduated cylinder on the right is about 25 milliliters of oil, which is approximately what you would normally bowl on in a normal league condition or sport environment. On the graduated cylinder on the left is the amount of oil that you're going to be bowling on in the Teen Masters pattern. Notice that there's a big difference between the two. The volume on the Teen Masters patterns is a lot less, and therefore the balls that you're going to be throwing that we talked about earlier, the urethane and polyester bowling balls, they don't have as much traction. They don't have nearly the track flare than a modern bowling ball does, and so we need a lot less oil so that those balls can perform and you can actually use them to score. So this is a nice contrast to show you the difference on the amount of oil that you're used to bowling on versus the amount of oil that you'll see at the Teen Masters, both in the league and in tournament play. And now we're going to talk about the unique Teen Masters environment. As we've said before in the opening, we talked about the volume of oil and how much smaller it is versus a normal league or sport pattern. Now we're really going to talk a little bit about the length of the patterns. As you can see here, we have two blue lines. The first one represents the short pattern. The second one represents the long pattern. This should give you some perspective of how long the oil pattern actually is. As you can see here on the shorter pattern, the actual distance from the end of the pattern to the foul line is shorter than the distance from the end of the pattern to the head pin, or to 17.5, which is flush in the pocket. So in this case, you have a tremendous amount of dry or stripped lane that the ball has to cover as it goes from oil to dry. So in this case, what we have here is a pin that's set on board 3, 4, and 5 to represent where you want, approximately where you want your ball to be at the end of the pattern as it starts to go into the hook phase and to the roll phase. This is significant because most of you, because this lane does tend to hook a lot, most of you are going to tend to want to migrate in and try to hook the ball to this spot, but I can tell you, especially after watching the tournament for the last couple of years, the best strategy is to start from the outside, keep your speed up, use more of your spare release, a little more end over end, and keep the ball in this zone here. That's going to give you the best chance to create margin of error. The second length pattern, or the long pattern, as you can tell, there's quite a bit of distance between the two blue lines. The other thing that you notice here is that the pin, the location is set around 8, 9, or 10 board. This is more in a traditional second arrow or track area location. When we were watching the Teen Masters this year, many of the bowlers had a great deal of success starting around 9, 10, 11, 12 in the arrows and throwing it out to this location. Now, the difference is what's your bowling style, how much rev rate do you put on the ball, how much axis rotation. The more you tend to hook it, the more you tend to move in and to throw it to this location. But I can tell you that in watching the players that had a lot more success, keeping the ball more on a straighter line with this equipment and this lane condition, tended to be the best strategy. So again, by contrast, you can see the distances of the two patterns, and you can see here by the pins that we have, the 8, 9, and 10 board at the end of the long pattern is approximately where you want to be, and on the short pattern, 3, 4, 5 board is the optimum place to take advantage and create the most margin of error so that you can be successful at the Teen Masters. So here's an interesting perspective, which probably most bowlers don't get a chance to because the bowling proprietor is not going to let you hit this part of the lane, but this is really where, to me, the game of bowling is really won and lost, is how the ball transitions from, as it clears the front part of the lane, it comes into the back. So as you can see in both cases, the long and the short pattern for the Teen Masters, you have a tremendous amount of dry lane that the ball has to cover. Therefore, that's why we have the pins in the key zones or the key scoring zones to give you the optimal margin of error that you're going to need to score and maximize the scoring potential of the lane condition. The other thing you notice here, and I want to talk about this area here, this is a perfectly stripped lane. This is perfectly dry. When you start, there's no oil on this lane whatsoever. The Kegel lane machine has stripped this completely off, and you're bowling on a bone dry lane, which means that, again, the ball has to be in these zones to give the ball enough room to go from, on the long pattern, 8, 9, or 10 to the 17.5 board, which is in the pocket, or in this case, at the short pattern, it has to be around 3, 4, 5 so that, again, the ball has plenty of boards to cover in order to go from the 3, 4, 5 board all the way to the 17.5 board. So again, I wanted you to see this perspective because most people don't get a chance to see it, and once they do see it, when we do give tours here at the Kegel, it really changes their perspective, and really I think it helps a lot of players see the lane much differently, which is a lot of times very difficult to do. So I hope this opens your eyes to how the game of bowling is played, and some of these tips will really help you maximize your experience at the Teen Masters. Urethane and plastic bowling balls, far less amount of oil, completely different environment. We're going to talk a little bit about the skills. We're going to talk a little bit about tips and help you train as you go forward with this program. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope some of these tips really help you maximize your experience in league play, the Teen Masters League, and also your Teen Masters tournament experience.